Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt. We're here to take you on a trip to a different year of music every week and share our opinions on what we found.
Welcome to version 1981.
And what a magical version it shall be, as Jim just exclamated that. We need to ask everyone's patience in allowing our indulgences this week. When we get to years like this, for our generation, it's big. The names are just going to flow. It's either that or it gets a part two.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, before we get started, I have to ask you a question. Have you ever felt like a small town girl living in a lonely world?
You trying to make me cry right off?
Yeah, well, we know we aren't two city boys born and raised in South Detroit. But speaking of crying, here we are a minute in. Let's just get to the deaths and get it over with.
Yeah.
There were a couple of artists who left us too quickly, and they had an everlasting impact on music and on people's lives. So I'll let you start.
Okay, before we get to the really big ones, I'll start off with RIP to the Doves that Ozzy Osbourne dispatched.
The Doves.
Well, he was in a meeting with some record executives, and as a symbolic gesture, they had some doves, the whole peaceful thing. Well, Ozzy decided their heads needed to be removed from their bodies, so he bit them off. Or a couple of them. He left one. And Rudy Sarzo recounted a story of seeing Ozzy later in the day, and there was this movement in his jacket, and it ended up being the third dove, and he bit that head off too, right in front of Rudy.
That must be some kind of snack, huh?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, on to the sad parts of other than the doves, their poor doves. We had Harry Chapin. I can't name any song of his other than Cats in the Cradle off the top of my head. The listeners chose this over ABBA and Kiss and really other popular bands on our 1974 episode. To me, this shows the impact one song can have. His death was so tragic. Harry Chapin was a humanitarian who wanted to help end world hunger. He was on his way to a charity concert in New York, driving along in his Volkswagen Rabbit, when he was involved in a fiery collision with a semi-tractor trailer. He was pulled unconscious from the car, but did not survive after being airlifted to the hospital. His epitaph is taken from his 1978 song, I Wonder What Would Happen to This World. And those lyrics are, oh, if a man tried to take his time on earth and prove before he died what one man's life could be worth, I wonder what would happen to this world. Very poignant, wonderful songwriter. Sounds like he was a great man.
Yeah, it was. And another great man, Bob Marley, passed away in 81.
That's big.
He was first diagnosed with cancer in 1977, and a biopsy confirmed it to be acral lentiginous melanoma under one of his toenails. After his 1980 tour for the Uprising album, he went to New York City to perform a couple shows at Madison Square Garden, where he collapsed while he was jogging in Central Park. At the hospital, he learned his cancer has spread to his brain, his liver, and lungs. September 23rd, 1980, he played his last show in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And months later, with his health deteriorating, he attempted to return to Jamaica. His condition worsened during the flight, and they were forced to land in Miami, Florida to get him to the hospital, and he never made it back home. He died on May 11th, 1981 at the age of 36.
Wow, that's crazy. Harry Chapin was 38. That's just nuts. Here is a toast to Harry Chapin, to Bob Marley, and to Ozzy Osbourne's Three Doves.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, let's not forget that guy who was drowning in that asshole, Phil Collins, would lend a hand.
That fucker. Boy, that legend really grew some legs, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. We won't tell the story here on the show because it's been spoken about many times in our lives, even back in the 80s. I think it was a legend of what is this song about? I thought it was just about Tom Cruise trying to get laid in Risky Business. That's how I remember the song. But with In the Air Tonight, along with Tom Sawyer by Rush, is 1981 the best year for air drumming?
It could be. I mean, geez, Tom Sawyer. How can a song be overplayed yet awesome at the same time?
Yeah.
When I see it coming in a playlist, I'm like, nah, I've heard that 100,000 times. I can skip that. But then when I don't see it coming and it just plays, it's magic. It's incredible. It's got the best of everything on it. Every instrument, the structure, the riffs, everything. To me, it's just perfect. I don't think the song can be overplayed.
I agree 100%. I keep thinking that I'm going to have song fatigue from it.
Yeah.
But for some reason, in the right moment, it's fun to listen to.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about Rush a bunch now. And we're probably not finished, but I think I've come up with an analogy as why we struggle with Rush a little bit. We both
Okay.
admit to struggling with Geddy Lee's vocals, and I think Alex Lifeson can be hit or miss on guitar. Are Rush like your high school friends in a band with a really good fucking drummer? You want to give them their support, but you might not turn up to the gig that you RSVP'd to.
I think you'd go because they seem like really good, cool guys. You'd probably feel like an asshole if you didn't show up. Yeah, it's Geddy's voice at times, right? But it's not just Neil Peart's drumming. I mean, Geddy Lee, his bass playing second to none.
Yeah.
But it really does feel like Alex Lifeson is the weak link here, and I don't know why, because he's great.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's because me personally, I'm blown away by Geddy and Neil, and there's always something interesting going on with the lyrics that it feels like the guitar is just kind of holding down the fort.
Yeah.
But I also haven't listened to a lot of Live Rush where maybe more of his magic is.
That's a good point. Something to check out. Along with the air drumming, something that happened in 1981 that I kind of noticed was significant or remembered from my 9-year-old brain were the hand claps going on in songs. You had Private Eyes, They're Watching You. And then Too Much Time on My Hands. When I was a kid, I used to go to the roller skating rink, and it was a big deal for everybody going around in the circle to clap when these moments came up. This is where I take music and sociology to a different side of our conversations. I think that hand claps in the right places in songs gives a non-musical person the chance to actually participate and makes the song more enjoyable. They can be essential to some of the songs. I just mentioned 2 of those songs because I remembered them significantly from 1981.
So hand claps aren't just for people who can't air guitar?
Oh, come on.
The use can be cringy if not framed right, but I understand and I love the participation of hand claps, but they just need to sound good. Not everyone has the same hands or the same rhythm. So if you get 5 or 6 people, there's going to be tonal differences, timing differences, not just one person clapping, then layer that sound 5 times. That's what 808's for. And those 808 hand claps can just go straight to hell as far as I'm concerned.
I'm going to agree with you, but asshole Jim alert here for a moment. We're still at the beginning of the episode and you have drawn asshole Jim out early. Dude, you are overcomplicating this. When we originally wrote this script, I'm going to let the listeners know, you were extremely dismissive of hand claps. You basically implied that it was just a grab at participation. And I'm not going to let you get away with that.
I don't know if I went that far.
I'm not getting into the syncopation of the recorded song. Of course, they're better sounding when it's looser. It sounds natural. But we're not talking about the post-2000s hand claps. I'm talking about the songs basically pre-90s that I just mentioned. It's not like clapping to the song, but songs with intentional hand claps in specific parts, like Private Eyes, people roller skating around the rink. They weren't examining the hand claps through headphones. They were just having fun. Either I don't get your objection to this, or I didn't get it originally, or I wasn't making my point right. So I've made up a list of songs for you that have hand claps as parts, not meaning for people to keep rhythm and clap all the way through. Just a short list. The Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Steelers Wheel, Stuck in the Middle. Queen, Radio Gaga, Another One Bites the Dust, and We Will Rock You. T-Rex, Bang a Gong. The Stooges, No Fun. Billy Joel, Only the Good Die Young. John Cougar, Jack and Diane. The Cars, My Best Friend's Girl. The Meters have a great song actually called The Hand Clapping Song, and it's a really cool song. So let me guess, Matt. Too many white people trying to clap along at the Eagles concert you went to, falling out of rhythm that pissed you off? Were you surrounded by a bunch of Steve Martins from The Jerk?
This music speaks to me.
I admit there's nothing more annoying than being in a live setting full of people who start clapping and can't keep the actual rhythm to the song, or they speed it up, or they keep clapping when it should be finished.
Yep, and it's usually because the audience is too big.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So the visual and the sonic don't match.
They don't match up. But there are way too many songs that have been enhanced by hand claps to be dismissive of them.
Oh yeah, I was just trying to piss you off.
Yeah, I could tell. So let's get away from this.
Yeah. Hey, no friends. Well, we're friends, but yeah, we don't need to go there.
Well, let's have the right conversation about one of the biggest bands from 1981, and that's Journey and the album Escape. It had 4 top 20 songs. It spawned a video game, which I'll say briefly was just the band trying to leave the concert and get to the hotel room or get to the bus. And they had to dodge fans and girls and the sneaky agents. And I'll never forget the sound that the sneaky agents made when you went by them. It was And I don't know why, but there are some sounds that just stick in your head for the rest
Oh
of your
yeah.
life, and you go by the agent, and if you bumped into him, and you die. But this album is as entwined into the music fabric of our culture as much as any album. It only held the number one spot for 1 week, and that wasn't until 1982. Don't Stop Believing is one of the most recognizable songs of all time, and it's now a diamond album with 10 million copies sold. We've talked about albums that slow burn on this show, but this one's been chugging along underneath everything for decades, and it's not really losing any steam. Is this the king of all slow burns? Does the world need optimism with a song like Don't Stop Believing once a generation? How many proms have been themed Don't Stop Believing?
Yeah, or Open Arms.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, great music spans generations, and they're always going to discover it. Maybe it's a matter of competition why they didn't get to that number one spot. Because we've gone through 1980. You remember how big 1980 was, how much great music there was. So there's still a bunch filtering through, which that it's an ongoing cycle. It happens. But the first half of the year, Double Fantasy and High Infidelity, took turns taking that number one spot.
They're massive.
I think there was one or two here that took them out. But you had John Lennon's death in 1980 kind of driving that surge a little bit, and High Infidelity for REO Speedwagon, that was wildly popular.
Yeah.
And so Escape, they didn't come out till the end of July, so you only got half a year to deal with. But then a few weeks before that, you had 404 came out. That record had 5 singles.
Yeah.
And then in August, the Rolling Stones released Tattoo You. I mean, Start Me Up was huge.
Yeah.
Those two albums right there took turns spending a month at number one. You mentioned Styx already. So you had Paradise Theater that was out. The Who had Face Dances. Those aren't small acts or, debuts.
No.
And while Escape is great, Journey wasn't really a model of consistency at this point. Jonathan Cain had just come on as their new keyboardist. And the songwriting duo of him and Steve Perry is where most of their hits came from. They have one of the best greatest hits albums of all time.
There's and one of the most successful selling greatest hits albums of all time.
Yeah. I wouldn't surprise me if it was the most successful. But there's 15 songs on that, and only 4 of those are prior to 1981. And Escape is their 7th studio album. So, I mean, if you haven't listened to their first couple albums, go back and listen to it. I mean, it's nothing like what you get from Escape. So they definitely evolved over time. But there's no denying the staying power of Escape.
1981 seems full of classic anthems, at least maybe in our minds because we were so young. But those songs have stood the test of time. I bet you could play Working for the Weekend by Loverboy to almost anyone, and they'd know the song even if they didn't know who sang it. I was a bigger fan of their first album, though. I think Working for the Weekend was the only song I ever knew off the 81 album, but it's still out there every Friday on classic rock radio.
Oh, God damn. Yeah, right. Every Friday. Yep. But when I think of Loverboy, the cover of Get Lucky comes to mind first. Those red leather pants.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the one even when I hear Turn Me Loose, for some reason, that album cover pops into my head.
Well, speaking of leather, 1981, come on, man. We had the rise of Joan Jett. You've been waiting for this.
I know, the legend of Joan Jett, right? Not too long ago, I said I'd talk more about her when we got to 81, but that wasn't that long ago. I feel like it'd be overkill to gush about her more.
That was version 3, 1980. It wasn't that long ago. It feels like yesterday, but it was actually back in like April or May.
Yeah. But we also didn't talk about I Love Rock and Roll.
No.
I mean, we had that 45 and we probably butchered that thing. We played it so many times. And she's on tour right now with Motley Crue, Def Leppard, and Poison. And
like right now?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I believe right now. And I would go just to see Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I've already seen the others at their peak, but I've never seen her. As long as she plays before Poison, so I can leave. I don't want to live in a world where Joan Jett has to open for Poison.
Well, then we have Stevie Nicks, another great triumphant female artist. Yes. Edge of 17. What a song. Was she the most successful solo artist to come out of Fleetwood Mac? The duet with Tom. Yeah, the duet with Tom Petty was a great vocal matchup on her album. The guitar intro was sampled by Destiny's Child, Bootylicious. but I have been faked out a few times by Higher the Tiger.
Oh, you're not the only one. That song has gotten me before too. And then I feel like an idiot
Yeah,
afterwards because I
it's not
can't
even in
tell
the
the
same
difference.
key.
I know, but it's that you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, without a doubt, if you're going to talk about solo acts from split off from Fleetwood Mac, she definitely takes the crown. And don't forget the duet she had with Don Henley, Leather and Lace.
Yeah, that's a good
There was
song.
a lot of duets back in, late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of duets.
1981 was my final year of local AM radio dominating my surroundings. I know I talked about it in version 1980 a little bit, country music and how it had a pop crossover, but it really may have just seemed that way to me because it was surrounding my life in a massive way. We moved in with my grandfather in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. WYKR AM radio was all we got. Sometimes you could pick up WBLM, the Blimp, if you remember that station.
Yeah,
The rocks, I think it's still there, a rock station out of Maine.
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it is.
But we normally only heard that on car rides when we were on our way to our grandmother's in New Hampshire. This AM radio station played on my grandfather's kitchen table in his truck. So I even think the bus driver played it on our way into school. So I'm going to name a few songs of these country artists from that time. I'll mention some that might have struck a chord with me, and you might remember them. There was Eddie Rabbitt, Step by Step, Alabama, still the number one selling country band of all time with 70 million records sold. Their hit song was Love in the First Degree. Ronnie Millsap, I Wouldn't Have Missed It for the World. Kenny Rogers, Through the Years. Conway Twitty, Tight and Fitting Jeans. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Conway Twitty. Yeah. Roseanne Cash, 7-Year Rake. Oak Ridge Boys, Elvira. Juice Newton, Queen of Hearts, or Angel of the Morning. Barbara Mandrell had a live duet with George Jones. I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool. It's so strange that this didn't become the music that would shape more of my life because I was listening to so much of it at the time. And while it's not something that I get sentimental about and go back and listen to very often, I'm actually kind of glad that I got to experience that when I was 9 or 10 years old. So I'm sorry for the massive name dropping here, but I don't think there's much music discussion to be had other than, in my opinion, country was in a good place in 1981. It hadn't really changed yet.
No, it hadn't. And some of that, like the names you mentioned, Eddie Rabbitt, they didn't have that signature twang.
Yeah.
While they were singing too, which can kind of be the main characteristic of it when I think about it. And many of those, as you said, had crossover success on the pop charts. In Alabama, they were getting ready to take the reins from Kenny Rogers as the biggest thing in country music.
Yeah, they got big.
Oh man, huge. I forgot all about Tight Fitting Jeans. Maybe because it was Conway Twitty. I don't know. I just think of him as an older artist because he had been around forever. So I think I kind of got lost that he was still, cranking out hits.
Yeah, I did too. When I was looking through the songs, I was surprised to see it there. It sounds more like an old country song and less like the new pop sound that was coming through. But country music's always gone in these cycles. Its standard sound progresses to the edge of pop and then it reverts back again. Yeah. It's like country music is a boomerang. It goes out and comes back.
Yep. You'll have Shania Twain. Oh, let's bring it back.
Yeah.
You have Faith Hill. Oh, let's bring it back.
Bring it back. Yeah. On the flip side of this, I had my brother playing most of the other music we're talking about around me in the house. I was 9 and he was 14. So he was bringing a lot of the current rock into the house. We shared a bedroom. I wasn't missing out on 4 or 4 you spoke about earlier and Tom Petty, but there was also the Van Halen album.
Yeah. And, other than the duet with Stevie Nicks, I don't remember Tom Petty much in 1981, which I have a hard time believing since The Waiting and The Thing About You were top 20 hits. But sometimes things in that rearview mirror are larger than they actually are, but I mean, no one knew how legendary Tom Petty would become.
Yeah.
And I really didn't discover Petty until that next record that he came out with. What did you think of Fair Warning? I didn't really know this existed in 81. And when I did find it, I really wasn't a fan. I kind of judged it at first on the cover. It didn't make sense to me. It kind of looked ugly. So I did that whole prejudge. But the more I listened to it this week and I'm like, you know what? I think I know why David Lee Roth sings a lot at times. I blame Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm listening to the riffs and I'm like, how the hell do you come up with a singable melody to some of these? It seems like he's dipping his toes in the waters of Prague at times. And I do get shades of 1984 here and there, more like towards the end of the album where I think I like those songs a little bit more than the stuff at the beginning.
Yeah. I bought this spontaneously on vinyl a few years back. I had never really heard anything off of it other than Unchained, or I didn't remember it from the time. But you're spot on about the progressive thing. And it's weird. I went back and listened. I don't dislike this album, but I want to like it more. I feel like it's missing just one thing to make it a great Van Halen album.
Yep. It's like it's just falling short of giving me a great hook or two.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a perfect way to say it.
Yep. And we danced around the Foreigner 4 thing a little bit, which we got to give it its due because it's a great album.
Yeah,
it's one of the best of 1981.
Mm-hmm.
It's still incredibly listenable. I can't get tired of this album.
I bought it on vinyl 2 weeks ago.
I know. I think that is so awesome. And Urgent, that's got to be one of the best sax solos ever. That thing is on fire.
You know my feeling about saxophone solos.
Oh yeah, I share that opinion. You know, they can kind of get a little
no, I love them. I miss the saxophone solos.
Really?
Dude, well, why does it always have to be guitar? Why does it, you know?
I get that, but I think it goes back to sometimes, and this is older me looking back on like how hand claps could get a little bit cheesy if not used in the right spot.
Yeah.
Or saxophone, the whole sound in the 80s, it kind of got like, oh, you killed it for me.
Oh, it did get killed. But these songs that were full of saxophone in the early 80s were really kind of honoring that 1950s sound of original rock and roll and the way that these came in.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk more about saxophone.
Yeah. And so when we went to Connecticut, Mark bought Foreigner 4, and the one that I bought was Jay Giles' band.
That's a good album. I definitely had this cassette by sending away my penny to Columbia house. I loved this album. I had a little boombox and I took it with me on a field trip in 5th grade. It was a good time until I had the back of the bus all singing along to Piss on the Wall, and I had it taken away from me. I really love the album. Centerfold has always been a revolving classic rock radio station classic over the years. And it was playing at work the other day here in Scotland. It was great to hear it. Brightened my day up.
Oh yeah. And like, as I said, when we first started talking about this, we were down in Connecticut visiting family, and me and Mark were in the downstairs room and we were playing this album. Piss on the Wall came on as my Aunt Christine was down there talking to us, and she just went, "Piss on the Wall," and just laughed along with us. She saw the humor in it. She was always great like that. But Freeze Frame, this was their crowning achievement. Early on, they were kind of like this bar band that was kind of on the way to making it big. And by the time Freeze Frame came out, they had transformed their sound, but they still had that bluesy bar band background. They could punch you in the face with whenever they needed to.
Yeah, they did. So initially, I kind of thought there wasn't much R&B in 1981, and there wouldn't be much to talk about. As I dug deeper, there are some absolute classics. Luther Vandross, Never Too Much, Rick James, his Street Songs album, which had Super Freak and Give It To Me Baby. I went on and on about country music and AM stations, but I was shocked when I was digging through the R&B songs to come across the Pointer Sisters song Slow Hand in the same rotation. Yeah. This played with all of that country music that I was listening to, and I knew it very well. But if you give it a listen, you can understand why it belonged kind of side by side with Juice Newton. And then Smokey Robinson was also in that playlist. And he had one of his biggest pop songs of the end of his career with Being With You. And his voice is still silk on this song, even in the middle of all the 80s production going on.
Oh, yeah. And we can't leave out the Commodores or Kool and the Gang in that R&B discussion. Lady and Oh No, those are classics for me. Kool and the Gang Celebration, while it's from 1980, it was a #1 hit in 1981. And then they came out with another album in 81, and that had 3 more hits. Get Down on It and Stepping Out were top 10 hits. Oh, and Al Jarreau, We're in This Love Together, if you want to talk about silky voices, that was a great song.
Just off the cuff, I didn't realize until I'm doing this with you right now. So Lady was 1981?
Not the Kenny Rogers. It's Lady, Bring Me Up. Lady.
Oh, that's a great song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The minute you hit the second part of that riff, I know that hook.
Bring me up when I'm down.
I like that.
Up when I'm down.
Lady. Well, hey, We also had a Diana Ross album. I don't think we really care for these Diana Ross 80s albums.
No.
I saw Endless Love on it. And so I was like, oh, I'll click on this. What the fuck? It's not the duet with Lionel. It's her just singing the song by herself, like a total cash grab by putting it on the album when it was one of the greatest duets of all time, in my opinion, which also came out in 1981.
Jesus, you haven't learned your lesson with Diana Ross yet.
I guess I haven't.
Were you looking for another piano song?
I must have.
I didn't realize she did that. Yeah, that kind of sounds like an ego thing to me, thinking maybe she could have done it better without Lionel Richie. She was wrong. He wrote the song, so he got paid regardless.
Yeah, maybe he told her, hey, go put this on the album. I'll get double.
Yeah, she probably had to get his permission anyway.
Yeah, so. That's true. If you look up R&B albums from the 1981 year, it's interesting. You have Hall & Oates in all of the lists, and Private Eyes is on it. I think in my lifetime, these guys have to be the most soulful, respectable white guys making rhythm and blues music. Daryl Hall is a Caucasian soulful enigma.
That blue-eyed soul, right? They had to have been on cloud nine making that record.
It's so good.
They had to know it was full of great songs. 1981 has quite a few albums that are meaningful to me, but Private Eyes is at the top of that list. In 1984, I was laid up. Sorry, I'm spanking my dog here because she wants attention. So in 1984, I was laid up with a bad ankle break, and I'm bored as hell. And I started going through old cassettes and everything, and I rediscovered this album. That and Men at Work's Business as Usual. Those two, they got me through a lot of sleepless nights and bored afternoons. I can listen to those two nonstop. But Private Eyes, to me, that was a great lesson in building an album track by track. Okay. You start out with a great song. In this case, it's a hit, Private Eyes. There you go, more hand clapping. So it grabs you, and it follows with a couple more songs. And the third song, that's where you usually get to your ballady kind of slower song, and they did it. Fortunately for them, it had to be another hit with I Can't Go For That, No Can Do. Yep. But then after that, you want to bring up the energy a little bit, but not all the way up. And then you finish side one strong, which they did on this album with Did It in a Minute. Yeah. And this song, to me, it brought up two thoughts. Immediately play it again or flip the record over because I was excited to hear what was next. I got stuck on this song. But when I finally flipped the record over, Head Above Water blew me away, and that whole cycle started again. It's this roller coaster, right? But with this album, the lows never really get all that low to me. For me, Did It in a Minute and Head Above Water, it's a twofer. Like We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. If I hear Did It in a Minute, I immediately have to hear Head Above Water. That's just the way I program myself over the years. Yeah. No, that's because cool. I know Head Above Water, that starts side two, and then I can, get your imagination and all those other great songs. Yeah. I'll go back and listen to it that way. That sounds good. So you have all this classic rock, all of this country, R&B, this great pop music that was going on. And right in the middle of it, you have the Stray Cats sitting there, and they're getting as much attention and airplay as anyone else. It's weird. Even as a 9-year-old kid, I got a sense of them kind of being a novelty. And it's not to knock what they do, which is pretty much the peak of the rockabilly game, in my opinion. But they oddly don't fit into 1981 and everything else that was going on for me. Oh, yeah. And I think that's kind of what helped them, that rockabilly edge. I mean, that set them apart, right? You had, country kind of leaning towards pop, or a lot of things leaning towards pop. And then all of a sudden the Stray Cats just stick out like a sore thumb. Yeah, an awesome sore thumb. We had these 45s. It's stuff my parents would dance to. They loved hearing this stuff. If there were more bands doing rockabilly, I would compare it to the swing movement of the 90s. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But give me rockabilly any day. When it's done like the Stray Cats, it's great. They love it. They're not treating it as a gimmick. They respect it, and they're honoring it. And it was really kind of a punk rock thing to do. It was, and it's time because it was so far away from everything else that was coming along in the 80s. August 1st, 1981 changed our lives, changed the lives and the face of music and everything that went on. MTV launched.
and would eventually change the way we'd experience music for the next decade or so, until people started complaining that they don't play music videos on MTV anymore. It also sealed the fate for ugly rock stars. The very first video was Video Killed the Radio Star. They knew what they were doing. So goodbye, Journey. Goodbye, REO Speedwagon, and so on.
And hello, Runaway Body Dysmorphia.
No shit. You're not kidding there, dude. So lest we forget what they looked like or who their music was aimed at, we both have to admit we knew all the words to many of the Air Supply
Shit, yeah.
album that came out.
And the ones before it.
Yeah, from 1981. Here I Am and the One That You Love were huge. I don't think I've ever looked for these songs in my adult life, but if I come across them, I sing my heart out. Matt, I think if you and I ever did a road trip, we would eventually have a big Air Supply sing along while we were going.
It'd be like that scene in Tommy Boy,
Yeah, that's
where the
what I was
carpenters
thinking.
come on.
Tears coming out of our eyes.
Don't you remember you told me you loved me, baby?
Here I am. But great songs. I mean, ballad kings. Air Supply were ballad kings, hands down.
Definitely. In 81, it's not too far removed from all that soft rock that was coming through in the 70s.
Yep. Well, when we're done singing Air Supply while we're cross crunchy tripping, we have to find the Dimensions album and take it with us. Dimensions. Explain to the people that are listening what this album is, because you and I have reminisced over this album more than once.
Oh yeah, 1981. That was the year that K-Tel entered my life. I'm assuming that's when it entered yours as well. This was the first K-Tel album that I remember, like, in that year. There's still some great songs on there.
9-year-old me thinks this is the greatest compilation of all time.
Oh yeah, no shit. I mean, but 51-year-old me, I'm like, I look at it or I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, I'd swap out Boy from New York City. I loved it at the time because, it was different. It stuck out, kind of like Stray Cats would. Elvira, it kind of seems more like a novelty song to me now. That Papa Mau Mau.
That voice was completely 100% unique and recognizable.
And that's, I think, what made it more of a novelty, because that's the part that you wanted to hear, because that deep bass voice, it's always amazing to hear.
Yeah, that was the hook.
Yep. Greg Kinn's The Breakup Song. That's great. A Fire and Ice, Pat Benatar. I love you.
Pat Benatar.
Oh, man. Climax Blues Band. That song, I Love You. When that comes on, I will sing my head off. That's such a great song. And weren't most of the girls crushing on Rick Springfield back in that day?
Yeah, they were. I listened to Jesse's Girl this week with headphones on, walking from home. It is a great song. The riff is really cool. There's a lot of dynamics going on in the song. It changes up the way a song should, just to keep your attention going for a pop song. Rick Springfield had a couple of hits in his music career, but he came from General Hospital.
Yeah.
He was a soap opera actor. And I think this was an unfortunate stigma that followed him. He had the actor-singer novelty that was working against him, but he had more talent than probably those guys from the 60s and 70s that we saw in TV shows go out and do a typical pop song.
Yeah, but yeah, he's got the chops and he's got some really good songs. But putting me back in that time, 10-year-old me, I knew him from Jesse's Girl, or that album Working Class Hero.
Yep.
Before I even, I didn't know General Hospital. General Hospital wasn't in my lexicon,
He did General Hospital first. He came out of that.
I know, but I didn't know about that.
It's funny. This is all during the General Hospital Luke and Laura get married era. And my father used to come home.
I did remember that.
Yeah. My father used to come home from work and we had to watch General Hospital. I would come home from school. My dad would come home from work and everybody would sit around and watch General Hospital at 3:00 in the afternoon in my house. I don't think any daytime TV has really captured an audience the way that this did in the 80s. And Rick Springfield just happened to be one of the doctors in the hospital, young guys going through. And at the same time, he had songs on the radio. But we all associated him with General Hospital more than being the hit record guy.
And that's probably just my brain that didn't make that connection, because I remember that Luke and Laura thing. I never watched it, but I remember that was all people could talk about for the
all
longest
over the
time.
place. Yeah,
Oh, and then we had going back to Dimensions. We got on a little fucking tangent there.
that's fine.
But we had Stars on 45.
Or 78 or 33. What was
No, it was
it?
45. that disco intro seems a bit lost for 81. If no one's heard the Stars on 45 medley part 1, just go to YouTube and check it out. Except for Sugar Sugar, it's a Beatles medley with parts of songs like No Reply, I'll Be Back, Drive My Car, You're Gonna Lose That Girl, on and on. It's pretty cheesy, but it's catchy. Or maybe you needed to grow up on it to have that connection.
We had it. But
yeah,
go back,
we did.
Check it out. Venus is also on there right at the beginning in the intro.
Oh shit, that's right. Yeah, oh, that's right. Yep. I forgot. It's right after that disco intro bit.
It is, which I just skip past when I want to listen to it now. Digitally, I can just move the bar across.
Yeah.
I had no clue what this song was pieced together as a kid, but I loved it. And you're right. It's odd how Sugar Sugar by the Archies still fits in with the Beatles, but hook by hook, it's great. It's probably the most successful mashup or remix that would have come along for a very long time. And for being a song in 1981, when you think about remixes and mashups and everything you see on YouTube today, it was way ahead of its time.
Yep. Do you remember when I sent you the picture of the album I have of Stars On?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's amazing. You look at it, it's like the whole side is filled up.
We need to find that and put it on Facebook. Yeah. I have a question, Matt.
Another one. Okay.
Yes, off this album, Billy Squier. What is the stroke?
I knew that was coming.
This sounded like a dirty song to me as a kid, but now it sounds like a bad dance instruction song. You put your left foot out, you put your left foot in.
The Macarena.
You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around, stroke me. Actually, Billy Squier says that it was about the music business.
Yeah, it was. And Dimensions aside, he had a really great album in 81. And looking back, it's kind of weird how many times I've heard The Stroke or In the Dark and My Kind of Lover on the radio, but none of them are top 10 hits.
No. My
Kind of Lover peaked at 45 and In the Dark was top 30.
Wow.
But it's amazing how over the years, when you just hear the song over and over and over, my brain goes, oh, that must have been a smash hit. Oh, don't be an idiot, Matt. Not everything has to be a smash hit to get played over and over.
Yeah. Well, Squier admits that, Queen influenced The Stroke or the album. And Queen's guitarist Brian May was actually slated to produce the album. When May backed out because of scheduling, Reinhold Mack, who produced Queen's The Game, stepped in and he produced it for Billy Squier.
That's pretty cool because I really love The Game. That's a great album.
It's great guitar sound on that album. And I think definitely. You know what's going on there. And I think it's really cool that that's who he was looking up for. Okay, Matt, here we go. We're at the end of the rope of 1981. We've gone through a lot of bands, name checked a lot of artists.
That was a little exhausting.
I think we've saved the good stuff though for our 5 songs. So yeah. I'm excited. Some of this stuff we've already called out, but I'm just going to start my 5 songs by replacing it all with the Dimensions album.
I knew you were going to do that.
I'm not allowed, am I?
No, you're not, because you'd have to have 5 K-Tel albums.
Okay. Maybe we should do a K-Tel episode down the road.
Oh, definitely. We could easily do that.
Yeah, I think maybe we should do a K-Tel episode down the road where we pick our favorite K-Tel songs, but we go through the history of K-Tel in our life. That'd be great.
Wait till you get to my 5. There's a couple of the K-Tel mentions.
All right. Well, my first song is not a K-Tel song. It's the Luther Vandross song from the album Never Too Much, and the song is Never Too Much. This is kind of a recent find for me. About 4 to 5 years ago, I was on a business trip in Liverpool, and I met these 2 guys in a band. The guitarist, Jack Gardner, he's world-class, and he has jazzy, progressive albums out there. But this was a bar band, cover band that these guys were playing in. And this song was just absolutely amazing. Watching Jack play the riff on it made me realize how fantastic the groove is to the song, and that the groove is not contained in the bass line or in the drums like you often see in a lot of R&B, but it is actually in the melody of the guitar and what they're playing. You can go look it up on YouTube, and there's like battles of guitar players out there with lead solos that they put into the riff. It's really cool and fun to go watch.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. And then
I didn't know that.
I do think when you listen to the song, Luther, his singing style on the song is a little like, I did this and 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 I did it. It's not totally poetic in a sense.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about Luther is he could sing you the back of a cereal box and it would sound good.
He could.
It's got
toast corn syrup.
9 and 11 essential vitamins, and that's he's just fantastic. This song's great. I think every element of this song is just top notch, and it, to me, I would not want to leave 1981 without this on the list. So my first choice, Luther Vandross, Never Too Much. What's your first choice?
My first is going to be Hall & Oates, Did It in a Minute. Well, this ought to be short because I just got done, giving a dissertation on that.
You really want to brag about doing it in a minute? Sorry.
Read the lyrics.
I've been saving that joke all week.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you should have, because I would have had a rebut better than being stunned to silence. This song has a great call and answer to it, but it's the instruments that do it. The keyboard part plays some then everything else comes in. So it's got that back and forth of everything kind of playing off each other. Great lyrics. Daryl Hall's voice is it's gold.
Yeah, it's butter. His voice is, yeah.
Oh, geez. So yeah, short, sweet. Hall & Oates, Did It in a Minute.
That's great.
What's your number two?
My number two. Okay, I'll extend the storytelling a little bit longer here. I am going to choose Men at Work's Who Can It Be Now? And this was a tough choice. There's great songs on this album. Initially, I was going to pick Down Under because the very first 45 I ever bought was Men at Work's Down Under. But I'm going to go to Who Can It Be Now because this song changed my life a little bit in music and understanding it and being in love with music. It's a great song. The music video was fantastic in its time. Watching Colin Hay and the funky eyes that he has, Who Can It Be Now?
Yeah,
it was great. But I said earlier that we were going to come back to saxophone solos. And this song has one of the signature saxophone solos of all of the 1980s.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
One of my favorites. So much so that I begged my parents to let me take saxophone lessons in school because I wanted to learn this song. So I got the saxophone. They rented it from the local music store in our town. And I went to music class with it. And I started learning a couple of things. And then I'd come home on the bus and Jimmy would get off the bus and leave his saxophone on it. And more than once, I would walk into the house and my parents would turn to me and say, "Where's your saxophone?" And then my dad would get that "oh shit" look in his eye, and he'd run out to the car and chase the bus up the road. And he'd flag it down or wait till its next stop so he could get the saxophone on it, because this would have cost hundreds of dollars from the rental, for them to get it back. Eventually, my parents said, "You've done this too many times. You need to take up saxophone playing next year or something, but you can't take it back and forth to school." So it sat in the house. And I still taught myself how to play scales. And I'm a self-taught musician in guitar and bass. And I think it's really cool that when I was in 5th grade, I kind of taught myself how to play some saxophone. And that was always something that's been part of my life. But to this day, if you ask me to vocally emulate the entire saxophone solo from this song, I can do it.
Same here.
Without missing a note. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That'd be one for the blooper reel, because we're not releasing that.
No, we're not going to do that right now. But if you go listen to the song, imagine me just annoying the shit out of you doing that.
Shit, I do that going down the road if it comes on the radio.
Yeah, it's so good. And I couldn't leave 1981 without bringing Men at Work with me. I'm sorry it's not Down Under. Maybe we'll put that on the list for the poll. And that song is just as worthy. Be Good Johnny was a great song. I really love that. Yeah, just a good album. So
yeah, we had to have a Men at Work song on one of our fives. At least.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That album's awesome.
Yeah. So that's my number two. What's your number two, Matt? Where are we going?
My number two is going to be "Oh No" by the Commodores. Another one I've kind of mentioned previously. but this is Lionel Richie at his best. You know, the beginning piano bit's reminiscent of Endless Love a little bit.
Yep.
Because I think people called him out for that when he released this song. And maybe it's Lionel's answer to Diana cutting him out of her album that song. But I feel like the Commodores have been forgotten a little bit besides Brick House. And I need more R&B like this in my life, you know, and definitely I need to hear it on the playlist. Do you remember the movie Last American Virgin?
Yeah.
Yeah, this song was one of the many. It's a great soundtrack on that album.
It's a really good soundtrack.
Oh God, and that movie will tear the heart out of a teenager too. So
yeah. Is that Tom Cruise again?
No, it's not Tom Cruise. I don't remember. I watched half of the movie on YouTube the other night. Just but anyway, so yeah, the Commodores. Oh no, that's my number 2.
All right. Little Lionel never hurts anybody.
Hell no.
No. My number 3. What we've talked about earlier, so we're coming back to stuff, but song by song, I'm gonna pick Jukebox Hero. I told you I bought the vinyl a couple of weeks ago. Did this song take over my life? You knew me when I bought my first guitar. How ridiculously and over seriously did I take myself?
Oh, very, but
yeah.
I don't think that's distinct to you. I think that happens to a lot of people.
But here we are with Jukebox Hero. And I was 9 when this anthem came out about a guy who hears a band playing from outside the venue and he buys a guitar, and only a couple of choruses and verses and choruses in, he becomes a big rock star on stage. I think this sold a false dream to 9-year-old me, and it probably screwed up a lot of my early 20s.
Well, it's a story song, right?
Yeah.
It's a story song.
But the song sold the dream to me. But ironically, if you go back and listen to it, I think the guitar solo sucks.
Oh, really? I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that then.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not memorable. You're gonna remember the saxophone solo off Urgent way before you're gonna remember the guitar solo off Jukebox Hero. Hey, as long as that guitar is strung way down low, that's all that matters.
Hey, 3 chords in a dream, right? Not 5 time signatures.
Thank you, Foreigner. All right. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is going to be Triumph with Magic Power.
This surprised me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't expect Triumph to show up at any point on the show.
Well, I like Triumph. They were the first concert I had seen, so I'm kind of like in tune to their music.
That's right. You brought that up. Yeah.
Yep. But it's a great sing-along song, which is more often the case with any song I like, but mostly when, you know, we're talking about the songs in the 5. You know, it's about embracing how music can transform your mood, help you frame your state of mind, and empower you to move forward, about being young. And Rick Emmett, he's a hell of a guitarist. Here we go back to K-Tel. The first time I heard this was on a K-Tel album, New Rock.
Yeah.
Which was in 1982, but I mean, still, this is an 81 song.
Oh, I remember that one too.
Oh, do you? Triumph, Magic Power. That's my number.
Awesome. So my number 4. Wow, we're there already. Well, so here's the thing. I can't not have this song be on the playlist. We spoke about it earlier. And after we did 1974 and ABBA's Waterloo did not make the playlist,
I know, right?
I got a little nervous. So we tossed this back and forth over the past week, and I picked it originally. And then Matt said, I'll take it off you. And I thought, yeah, sweet. I'll get 5 different songs and Matt will have to take it. But then Matt came back and I saw that all of a sudden it wasn't in his 5. So I am going to pick Tom Sawyer by Rush. Look,
thank you.
I get it. A lot of people and many friends of mine will be thinking this song doesn't need to come back around, but they're wrong.
Oh, completely wrong.
This song is for young people, new listeners now. It's a complete lesson in bass playing and drumming in one song. Neil Peart's going to teach you 18 rhythms and 3 time signatures. I made those drumming facts up, but still in this song. And the bass playing, as you mentioned earlier, it's 100% top tier. If you're a young musician and you really want to learn how to be great at what you do, learn how to play Tom Sawyer. If you can do that, you will go out there and be able to handle anything, especially as a drummer on stage. The drum beats change up so much, but they're all beats that you're going to hear down the road in so many other songs. Yeah, you can't beat them. So that's my number 4. And I'm happy to have it. And I'm happy that it's one of mine. I've got other Geddy Lee instances from 1981 that I might bring up if we do a cleanup episode. But that's it. So
no, but you're right to bring it on here, because my argument was Tom Sawyer would be a shoo-in on the poll, right? But then at the same time, well, if we put it on, then it gives another song another chance on the poll, because I don't know, to me, Tom Sawyer's like the obvious choice.
I agree. But now I'm kind of like, well, start me up, make it.
Yeah, bait the audience. Now it will.
Yeah. All right. That's my number 4. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Jay Giles Band and River Blindness.
Oh, that's a great track. That's not one of their biggest songs off that.
Oh, no. I don't care that it wasn't a hit. I don't even think it was released as a single. I doubt it was. But I love all the different textures that get layered into this song. This tense beginning, and then this drum machine comes in. It doesn't sound like an 808 to me. It sounds like the drum sound you get out of a Hammond organ. You click on the samba or the bossa nova. It's kind of got this air sound to it. But the best part is right in the middle. Put on some headphones, and I can listen to that infinitely, just about. Not to go too overboard, but that drum beat continues, and then the bass drum kicks in. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. And then there's reverse percussion elements and a bass solo. The guitar comes in to restate that opening riff. It's just powerful. I got really good at dropping the needle on that section of the song. I'll admit the end of it kind of drags on a little bit, but that middle is so worth it. It's so awesome.
That's great. Yeah, it's a great album. And you're exactly right. Everything you said about Jay Giles earlier and their rise, and kind of, it was almost, boiling up and boiling over with great music with this album.
Yeah,
so definitely. Yeah, this definitely was one of the albums I got with my penny from Columbia House.
Hope you didn't send it a wheat penny.
It was worth 2.5 cents in 1981. All right. So is it my final choice?
Your final choice.
I am going to go with the Go-Go's We've Got the Beat. A few months ago, not even that long ago, a month ago or so, I watched a documentary on Sky Documentaries over here in the UK, and it was all about the Go-Go's, and it was fantastic. It blew my mind. These women were legit rock stars, just as much into living the life as men were.
Oh, yeah, they were.
I don't know. We've got vacation coming up, in the next year or two.
Are you going to sing that song for us?
No. maybe when I see you in a couple of weeks. But I just have to talk about them now and make sure I've got this opportunity. They were one of the greatest bands of the 80s, male or female, no doubt.
Yes.
They were the real deal. Now, a band like this might be confused as being contrived by a record label, but they are actually the template that record labels used to, themselves unsuccessfully achieve what the Go-Go's did for the past 40 years. I love Belinda Carlisle's voice. I've always loved it. She's a great front person. One of the really cool things about her is that she is not a diva. I always thought she might have been. And then when you watch the documentary and you find out when she went on her solo career, it was because Jane wanted to actually sing songs further down the line in future Go-Go albums, but the band had a philosophy that everybody in the band has a job and Belinda's the singer. And when they said, no, Belinda's the singer, you can't sing, Jane left the band. And Belinda's solo career was actually built on songs that were intended to be Go-Go songs by the other songwriter in the band. I forget what her name was. Oh, cool. Yeah. And actually she wrote songs for Belinda's career as it went along. So I have a lot of respect for them after learning this. Everyone did handle their job perfectly on this record. And I hope maybe when we get to the other years, I think it really just might be the next couple, but we might have another Go-Go song. I can't skip We Got the Beat. This is a classic 80s rock tune.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And I think we're gonna like that upbeat kind of song in the playlist.
All right,
Good
that's my
choice.
5. I'm happy with that.
We've had some fun with K-Tel.
Mhm.
I found Santana and this song thanks to another K-Tel album, Night Flight. I don't know if you remember that one. That was more of an R&B album that came out. Again, 1982, but it's an 81 song. It had quite a few R&B songs that we've talked about
Yep.
earlier.
Yep.
Winning is another song I could sing all day long. And yes, you can clap your hands along to it as well. I had so much trouble picking songs this week, but this one was the shoe-in. I
Okay.
had to have this song.
That's great. Night Flight. We're gonna
Night
visit
Flight.
these. Yeah, K-Tel Records. We have to do this episode.
I know. I think I even had Night Flight on 8-track.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. No, that and it's a good song. And yeah, I think it's a great song to bring to the playlist. What I like about your choices, Matt, is I think every song I brought to the playlist, people are gonna be like, I know that one. Yeah, I know that one. I know that one. And then here comes Matt with I'm gonna have to go look that one up on the playlist.
Well, that's what I tend to do that a little bit much, but I didn't know that Luther Vandross song
Okay.
until I saw it and I went back and I'm like, oh yeah, that's damn good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's smooth. It's smooth.
Smooth as silk.
Well, there we go.
Butter. It's butter.
Yeah.
So like that, we're all done with 81.
Yeah, we're done with 1981. I think we should probably take a moment to thank everybody for coming back and listening after, our break for a couple of weeks. Maybe you've seen some stuff on Facebook. Maybe Matt and I will have a reunion video. We'll have to figure something out. We record the shows, a couple of weeks ahead of time, but we are going to see each other. And by the time this reaches you, Matt and I will have seen each other for the first time in probably 12 to 13 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'll be great. So it's been fantastic. Matt, as we are at the end of 1981, as always, when we do come back, you are going to pick the year that we picked back up on. Yes. Oh no, this is the year we picked back up on. No. Wait. So here we are, Matt, as we always do at the end of 1981, it's your choice to pick the next year we're going to go to. So what are we following up 1981 with?
The next time you hear from us, we will be partying like it's 1999.
Oh.
It's an odd year for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I saw it and I'm like, that seems like a year that might just linger on and nobody wants to pick it. So, so I'll pick it because I'm curious as to what was going on in 1999.
I'm curious too. I'm looking forward to looking up the music from then. Yeah.
I have an idea that a lot of alt rock was probably in my presence.
Yeah. And we were probably all really worried about what was going to happen to our computers at midnight.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That might be the beginning of all the grand conspiracy theories that we've been running down into.
Yeah, Y2K was probably the start of it all. The world was going to end because of computers crashing and everything was going to stop working.
Jesus, it wasn't Skynet, people.
Well, it gets into the heads of people. They watch too much Terminator. Yeah. All right. Do you want me to sign us off then?
You go ahead.
All right, I'll do that. It's been a lot of fun to talk about 1981, and I'm going to keep Matt stuck to the idea of going down this road of K-Tel Records because we need to do that.
Yes,
it'll be a lot of fun. So I will say goodbye to everybody. And Matt, would you like to say goodbye to our audience?
Goodbye, audience. Thank you for listening, tuning in, as I like to say, at least. Thanks for the support. And hey, keep coming at us on the Facebook page with participation, especially in the polls. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we love it. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. And we hope you catch us next time. Peace, love, and podcast.